Julia Hogarth is like a modern-day Yoda. I've never directly been taught by her or sought her advice, but after hearing some of her words about meditation, self-care and mindfulness, I now have a better understanding on how to listen to my inner self and help pursue my dreams and goals. This step will be talking to Julia about taking the leap into a bigger world some of us are too scared to, about finding the true passion each of us seek, embracing the change and going for it. Welcome to JLP Creator Sessions Episode 5. Hey everyone, thanks for watching episode 5 of the JLP Creator Sessions. Today I have a very special guest, Julia Hogarth, very inspirational speaker. Tell us a bit about yourself firstly.
I am Julia Hogarth. I am, I guess my official title right at this time, because I live by my creativity, I often, the elevator pitch about what I do is often changing a lot. But right at this current point in time, I am a meditation teacher. I'm a brand new life coach. I kind of consider myself a creator first and foremost, or a creatress, I like to call myself.
Nice.
So I am a creatress of I guess lots of in-person and online experiences, which I'm just building out right now on my website, access to all the different mindfulness programs that I run. But meditation, mindfulness, and life coaching is my shtick.
Nice, beautiful. So I mentioned it before, but your story of how you got into your current passion, I called it ballsy, but tell me and us a bit about how you went from your former job into where you are right now.
So I am a former librarian, past life. I wish I had my speckies because I used to have the most librarian pair of spectacles. I wear contacts now, so
Yep.
I don't have the look anymore. But I went from high school into, I guess, this career that I went into because I feel like this is a really common story, because I didn't know what else I wanted to be, and I loved reading and I loved learning. I'm a lifelong learner before anything, so I think being able to work in the library where all the knowledge was just available to me 24/7 was just the most irresistible thing for me at that time.
Yep.
So I went and worked in public libraries, which was so much fun. All the colourful personalities, and I loved it for so many years, and I was good at it. When I quit my job, actually, I was working for the City of Melbourne, and I was managing a team of librarians. So I was working my way up, and people were like thinking that I was just this, I guess, example of success in that certain sphere. And it got to a point where it served me for many, many years, and I loved it so much. But it got to a point where it started to get heavy. I started to feel a shift in what it was I needed. Around the time when I started to meditate, I was meditating twice a day, every day. And you know a bit of this story, but I was coming through a period of what I call magic dark, where I was questioning things and needing something more than what I'd done before. So I was meditating, and I started to hear what it was I needed very clearly, in ways that I had never heard before. And so that start of my spiritual journey was kind of the end of that career. Because I started to hear that actually what I really loved about that job was the people support. So I guess the coaching side of it is what I really loved. So that wasn't keeping me fulfilled enough, and it was all about alignment for me at that stage. So I was like, what is my alignment? What does a more aligned life look like for me? And what I was really loving at that time was the meditation. So I studied to be a meditation teacher while I was doing that job. And then I took a month's long service leave, because I'd worked in libraries for 8 years, 2 different public libraries. So much fun. But I took a month off and I started to do my meditation circles just out of my sunroom at home. And I put out, I think, 3 or 4 free sessions, and they just kept booking out. And I was so surprised about it at the time. But I had this month off where I was teaching meditation, and I had groups of women around me, and I was really helping people's own spiritual paths and, mental health and things like that. So I had this month off where I really stepped into it. And then when I went back to work after that, I was like, oh, this feels completely wrong.
Yeah.
It was a hard come down, to be honest. Because after a month of kind of playing in this new reality, I was like, whoa, back to old life. And it didn't fit anymore. Yeah, it didn't fit anymore. And I remember telling my parents that I was going to quit my job. And they weren't impressed. It was a really great job in terms of very secure. I mean, it's funny to me to think of now, but very secure, great money, great benefits. In my parents' eyes, working for a council was like, you never quit that job. So, I was super lucky that I had the support of my husband to be able to quit and move into the work that I wanted to do. And I had a life coach at the time that was helping me through that transition. And the beautiful thing that happened was just before I really thought that I was going to quit. So it took me a long time to have the mental shift to go, actually, that's probably a thing I can do. But I remember she said, Julia, I want you to write your resignation letter, and I want you to put a date on it. You don't have to send it. Don't worry. You don't have to send it. Just, I want you to write the letter. And I was like, cool, I'm not going to send it. And she's like, okay, fine. And then I remember I wrote the letter and I put the date on it and I saved it. And it was like a week later that it was like I just had made a sudden decision, but it had been coming for a while. And I just printed it off at work and was like, here you go, to my boss. And she was like, okay, this is unexpected. But yeah, I had the beautiful support of my husband and this life coach. And we had a conversation before I finished. So I handed in my resignation and she was like, okay, cool. What does the ideal job look like? And I was like, I can't have the ideal job. And she was like, okay, but what does it look like? If you could wave a magic wand, what would it look like? And I said, it's 3 days a week. I work from home. I have all this time with Lenny, my son, at home. I have creative freedom. I'm definitely working for a woman, some sort of creative expander for me. And she was like, okay, cool. So we had that conversation and I put it out into the universe. And then as soon as I quit my job, she messaged me and said, okay, I've got a job for you. And it fulfills all of your requirements, which, it was a really amazing moment in the fact that I was being looked after and that I could literally speak my reality into being.
And it's such a common issue for creative people or people in general, is to have something locked in that's safe and secure, like you mentioned, but it's not right. And then to make that jump, to make that leap into something that you want to do, you might be leaping into like a bottomless pit, but you could be leaping into like a bed of like sunflowers or something soft and cushiony. And it's a big leap, and you don't know what's at the bottom. But what advice would you give to people who are in like a similar position like that, where they might be stuck in one way or another, and they want to pursue something and they don't know whether they should? I know I've had those issues before, and I've made little bunny hops, not so much a leap so far. But what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think there's definitely merit in the bunny hop situation. Yes. Mine was a full leap out into nothing. Yeah. But I did have the support of my husband, which I guess I'm truly grateful for, because it allowed me to have that leap. And I often hear people say leap and the net will appear. I kind of agree with that, but also I believe in having what I call the bridging jobs. So sometimes when I coach women through doing what I do and leaving jobs, there is that bridging job situation where, for example, what I just described. I still work a couple of days a week for my boss, Tracy. And that gives me income while I'm over here playing with my business and working out where my income stream's coming through. So I think it's really important at all times to be nourished as possible. And I don't mean just in a self-care way. I mean in that finance and abundance way. So I think the way that you have done the bunny hop thing is really, really great. I think for a creative to be in their zone of genius and to feel safe enough to have that creative play. Sometimes we do need those bridging jobs, and I still have mine. And I'm so lucky to have that. But I think, I think it's a fine balance between leap and the net will appear and still being as nourished as possible whilst you're doing that.
Yeah, and that's probably the key word is like that balance. Like if you're still like unsure and you're not exactly 100% on the direction, you just find the balance of, working 2 or 3 or 4 days at another job, and you broaden what you want to do until you know that it's the right step, and then you can make the full leap. So you mentioned obviously meditation was a huge part of what you do now. What is the thing that you get most out of the meditation and that you find other people get out of it? Is it like helping it to overcome these like roadblocks in life?
Yeah. So there's 2 answers for this, and I'm going to give them both. So first of all, there's the really immediate physiological and basically the stuff that everyone knows that meditate. I feel like lots of people know what meditation does for you physically, which is, lowering heart rate, stress levels, improving sleep, like all those things that are quite common knowledge now. So that's one part of it. But the second part of it for me, and this is what I teach, meditation and having a meditation practice has helped me. And there's a really beautiful story that I always like to draw upon. And it's about when you start meditating so a big part of my practice is stepping away from the emotions that I'm experiencing and just observing. So that observational gaze and taking one step back from what I'm in is really important. And there's a story that likens it to being in the storm or sitting inside next to the fire in an armchair watching the storm. So there's a difference between being in it, so being, you know what I mean, being fully pulled to and fro by your emotions and what's happening around you. There's a difference between that and having that observational gaze of like, okay, what's going on here? And the way that meditation changed my life is when I started to get into that observational gaze of myself, I started to hear, and people often say to me, I can't meditate, my mind's too busy. And I'm like, no, you're the perfect person to meditate. The busier your mind is and the quicker it's going, the faster you're going to hear what stories are racketing around in there, because it's like pew pew pew. So if you actually start observing those stories. So when I started to meditate, I remember hearing the first stories that I started to identify were like they were about my new life. They were like, you can't have what you want. And I heard it again and again and again. You're not good enough for that, Julia. Again and again. And then I started to the more I meditated, the more I was like, hang on, is that true? Is that my truth? Or is that a story that's and a program that's been running in the background here? And I've never heard it before because I've never sat still and gone, what's going on here? So that is what meditation did for me. It allowed me to hear the stories and the programs that were running in the background that I never thought about or noticed before. And then I was able to start challenging it. So as soon as you're aware of them, it's like half the battle done, because you're like, okay, cool. There's a story. For example, I had a story that I wasn't worthy of what I was calling in. So I identified it and I was like, okay, there's a voice that's like, you're not worthy of this. So what do I do with that? It's really hard to start. It's really hard to keep going on in the same patterns when you're meditating regularly and you're hearing the fear
Yeah.
So that's what it's done for me, is to be so aware of the programs that I'm running and the things that are going on, the speak that's going on up here in my brain, and moving past that. It's that's why I teach meditation, basically. But I'm a bit of a rebel meditation teacher, because I feel like sometimes meditation in the traditional way we think about it is not it for everyone.
Yeah.
So I kind of count mindfulness practices as meditation, which is technically not really correct. But my husband, for example, goes out for a surf. He's not very good at it.
Yeah.
That's his mindfulness practice. He's fully in it. He's completely quiet, and mindfully in what he's doing. So
and
I count
that idea of, just taking a step back and like listening to yourself. Just taking a moment to listen to yourself, which can come in many forms, like surfing.
Totally, being in nature.
So how, what do you gain the most out of helping other people, operate these practices and like empower themselves and listen to their own thoughts?
There's a really important thing that I do before I even do anything, which is when I'm holding space for people, I really am trying to see them, because that's all humans want most of the time, is to be truly seen and heard. So my job, first and foremost, is to hold space for people and to actually see and hear them. Not hear them in like, we're having a conversation like this, but actually be fully 100% without agenda, so that I can hear them without without listening, so that you're forming your own response, but actually just listening and being there. So that's the first thing that is I see as my job. The second thing is I'm 100%, I call myself a cheerleader for people, but I'm 100% here for those aha moments. So for example, if I was coaching you, Jake, and you were like, oh, I can't have this because of XYZ, or I can't do this because of blah, blah, blah. And the moment where I'm asking the questions and being like, is that your truth, or is that a story? And the moment they go, oh, hang on, that's a story that my mum gave to me, or someone gave to me, when I was 12 or whatever, that aha moment where they're like, oh, that's not mine. Those are the moments that I really live for, because I've had so many of those moments through my journey, and it's such a joy for me to be the mirror so that people can have those aha moments. Because as you said before,
people have like thought to themselves and they're like, oh yeah, and you've just like changed their perspective on like what they're thinking.
Like a really strong reframe is like the most transformational thing. And I really love it. And it's like what you said before, those roadblocks that people have that are really just limiting beliefs, that we have the power to change those and to choose again. So for my clients to have those moments is really, really just my most favorite thing.
Yeah, awesome. So a bit of a change of tact. One of your recent ventures is starting the U School podcast, which I was lucky enough to go to the launch. Quite an exciting project this is, but basically you speak to, anyone, a lot of creative people about multiple different discussion points. How have you found that so far, and what are some of the things you've learned from discussing different conversations with different creators?
The podcast, I never had a plan to do that. I bought a microphone to record meditations, and then I was just so a lot of what I teach is like follow what feels good. And sometimes people come to me and they're like, I don't know what my passion is, what my purpose is, but this is not what's currently happening for me. And so I'm always teaching about following the taps of what's feeling good. Whatever feels fun, follow that. Which is exactly how I changed my career. Meditation felt amazing to me. I just kept following the breadcrumbs of that. So the podcast came out of me buying a microphone having way too much fun and then being like, I just want to like use this all day. And like, I've always really been drawn to, which this is such a big community in Geelong, which I love. I've always been drawn to people doing their heart work in the world. That's what I call it. But like, basically, first of all, I think personal development will change the world, but actually what will change the world is all of us going, okay, I have such a unique set of gifts, skills, aptitudes, things that turn me on. That literally is what we should all be doing for work, I believe. Right? So the things that we uniquely have, I think, can be a roadmap for the work that we do and the way that we serve in the world.
Yep.
So the podcast is a way that I wanted to serve in a way that I talk to people that are expanders of mine. And so I kind of want to explain that term because that's basically what the podcast is based on, the idea of expanders. An expander is someone that you identify with, and you don't have to know them personally, but someone that maybe shares an upbringing or background or shares something with you. So you see yourself in them in some way. And these just might be people you follow on Instagram.
Yeah.
You don't have to know them. It's people that you identify with that are successful in what you're trying to call in. So what happens then is as you see that person experience success in what you want to experience success in, watching them do that shows the mirror neurons in your brain that what you want is possible. It's the fastest way to manifest something. And the word expander is taken from the work of Lacey Phillips. She's got her Instagram and website and work is called To Be Magnetic. And basically the premise of her work is the more yourself you are and the more you can get rid of those limiting beliefs and blocks, the more magnetic you are, the more you can manifest. So I basically interview my expanders on the podcast. And a lot of them are local people, people that are literally like, here's my interest, my niche, here are my skills. I'm going to build a business based on that. And I just could talk to these people all day. I'm extremely heart-led in my life. And so I'm interested in people who are also heart-led. And then not just that, but serving the world in that way.
Yeah, for sure. And just listening to, the last episode, it certainly is just an educational and informative thing as well, because there's things on there that I certainly haven't learnt about or heard about before. And I'm sure a lot of other people will listen to it as well and gain information from it, which in itself is a really positive thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm just about to record a series that'll be host only episodes, which actually are kind of, I'm making them into like lessons and I guess taking that U-School thing. And it'll be all about basically how you start to hear the stories or the blocks or the limiting beliefs that are running your life and how to drill down into that and find how to, in knowing yourself better, find out how to move through those things. And it's such a cliche, but I'm all about living your best life.
Yeah.
If you had told me 2 years ago that this is what I would be doing today, like even talking to you,
it's weird.
I would have been like, whatever, Julia, you can't do that. But I've just evolved so far that now I'm like, heck yes, I can do this. This is my joy to do this. I get to serve people doing this.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I could definitely listen to like a million episodes of Hogs hosting life lessons and how to be
yes, that is a nickname that you've given me for everyone listening, and I really like it.
Sorry, I watch a lot of footy, so nicknames tend to pop up out of nowhere, but Hogs, you should definitely trademark that.
It's really good. I really love it.
Jules, thank you so much for being on my show and talking to me. I hope a lot of people watch this and gain some own education out of it and then follow you because of that, because you've got a lot of information and life experience to give. So thank you again for being on my show.
Thank you so much. I really believe in what you're doing, Jake. And I really think, I've said this to you before, but yeah, I don't think you're going to have your bridging job for long. I really believe in like an explosion of your photography and that business side of it. And yeah, thank you for doing what you do.
No worries. Yeah, well, hopefully when we're allowed to go back outside again, I can start taking more photos.
Wouldn't it be? Yeah, I can't wait for that too. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Hey guys, make sure you follow Julia on Instagram at julia.hogarth and search for You School with Julia Hogarth on Spotify. Thank you all for watching, stay safe and well, and I'll see you in the next one.